come here and listen to me talk when it's so nice. But thank you, Rhonda, for setting this up. And I just, raise your hand if you're a current circulator for Axe My Tax. Oh my gosh. That kind of blows me away. Because this is really all about Axe My Tax. Property tax elimination is what I have been working on for quite some time already. This is our second time around. And why am I running for governor? Because of Axe My Tax. I didn't do Axe My Tax to run for governor, because that never would have been in my wildest dreams that I would have to do that. But Axe My Tax, the total elimination of property tax in the state of Michigan, has always been my dream, my vision, and my goal. And so now I feel like, from things that I've learned being around Lansing and our current administration, the legislators in Lansing, the people, that it was God kind of pushing me and saying, you need to get in the race. I didn't do it willingly, but you know what? Sometimes when you speak, of course he knows better than what we do. And so you listen, and then you wait to see how it's going to play out. So, a little bit about me, and I think since so many of you are circulators, you've probably heard this already, but why do I think I'm qualified to be a governor of Michigan? I've worn many hats. I started out right after high school working at a company in Zealand. I was in accounts payable, I was in cost accounting, I was in inventory control. So it was all numbers related, budgets and numbers related things. And then we started a building company. So I have my residential builder's license. And we started developing property, so I developed property as well. Why then also, I now have my real estate license. So I'm a licensed real estate agent, and so I deal with people all of the time that are either buying or selling property. I was a fully uniformed officer with a volunteer officer for a sheriff's department. So a little bit of law enforcement knowledge, not a lot, but a little bit, enough to know. I praise those people every day. They are saints. I also currently own a little restaurant, so I'm part of the Restaurant and Lodging Association, and I own a little retail antique shop, so I'm also part of the Retail Association. As a builder, I sit on the Home Builders Association, the state board. So all of these things, and I prepared tax returns for 12 years. So all of these things, I keep getting information fed to me from all of these different arenas and things. And I started to, during COVID, with everything I did, I couldn't do. So I'm like, I can't make any money, and yet I have to pay all of these bills and property taxes on everything that I did, but couldn't do because of COVID. And I said, I'm not the only one. This is happening to everybody in Michigan. It decimated us. It really did. We lost 6,000 restaurants during COVID, and we continue to lose more because there were some that were barely hanging on by their fingernails, and they were going through the owner's savings. But nobody knew how long COVID was going to last, and now those people are in their third year of not being able to pay property taxes, so they're going to be foreclosed on and closed. I had a gentleman who owns a restaurant that called me and he said, during COVID, Karla, I got $100,000 behind in property taxes. And he said, and then they added another $30-some thousand in penalties and interest onto that he had to pay off. It's like, this is not a good business environment, right? What we're doing to people. So again, as I'm working on Axe My Tax, and there's a lot of research that went into that. It wasn't like just one day I woke up and said, I don't feel like paying property taxes anymore. It was everything that was happening, not only in my life, but my mom's life, my mom and dad. We just lost my dad in June, and now I'm sitting here and my mom, looking at my mom going, how are we going to keep her on the family homestead, right? How are we going to keep her there? Because she just lost my dad's pension. She has very little Social Security. She's 88. My dad was 89. My dad started working in 1957. We were a farm. I grew up on a farm. So my mom was a farm wife and a mom. Her Social Security is about this big. My dad, like I said, started working in 1957. What do you think his pension looks like? He retired 25 years ago already, right? He's not making anywhere near what people are making today. And yet their property value and their property taxes keep going up and up and up to the point where they can't afford it. They could barely afford it when my dad was alive. And now that he is gone, it's how does my mom afford that? And that's not just my mom. That's every senior citizen out there. It's happening to everybody. The Ask My Tax website has a graphic that we put out, and it's called Lose Your Spouse, Lose Your House. Because that is exactly what's happening. We are making more homeless seniors than what we have veterans. And it's not a good thing to have homeless veterans. But the seniors, they didn't go to war, a lot of them. And maybe they didn't. They've paid their houses off, they've paid their mortgage, they've been paying their bills, they've been paying their property tax, and all of a sudden one day they can't afford it, and it all gets taken away. And when you lose your house, you don't just lose your house. You lose the equity that you built up into it because you're spending all of your savings, you're spending every dime you have trying to keep your house. You go into credit card debt trying to keep your house. You borrow from friends and family trying to keep your house, and then you lose it all. And then you lose your dignity as well, because now you have nowhere else to go. My son, like a lot of other young people, he sends my grandkids to Christian school. And he goes, because we all know a lot of public schools are failing, right? If you don't agree, I'll talk to you later. But we see the statistics. We're anywhere from 42nd to 48. Like 2 to 8 from the bottom, right? In the quality of our public school education. So my son elected to send his kids to Christian school. And he goes, Mom, I don't want money from the state. I elected to send my kids to Christian school. I will pay that tuition. But it sure would be nice not to have to pay to support the public schools, which we don't use, right? But I said to him, well, that's very nice of you, Mitchell. That's very gracious of you, not to want money from the state. But I said, you still support the public schools. Even if we eliminated property taxes, he would still be supporting the public schools. Does anyone know how?
Millage.
The what? Not the millage, because the millage is going to disappear with our property tax, right? Sales tax, income tax. When you pay income tax, or when income tax is withheld from your paycheck, you are supporting public schools. Anything that you buy and pay sales tax, you are supporting public schools. Alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco sales, you are supporting public schools. When you buy a lottery ticket, supposedly supporting. So they said, right? So they said. So he will still, and he's a builder too. So every time he buys property and then turns around and sells it, as the seller, he has to pay real estate transfer tax. That goes to public school systems, right? So even though he's sending his kids to Christian school, we are all going to continue to support public schools. The millages on your property taxes, that go to your local school does not educate your kids. You're paying for building maintenance, playground equipment, football fields, and past that. Okay? Don't get shamed into voting yes on those. All of these things that I'm talking about were all part of what went into Ask My Tax, the thought process. I talked to economists, spent a lot of time in Lansing talking to legislators, and you know what? Most of them didn't even understand what I was talking about. I would walk in there with the state's, a simplified budget from the state, House Fiscal Agency. I would bring them my property tax bills, just like I do with my normal presentations for Ask My Tax. And I would sit down and try and talk to them about, help me out here, something's got to happen. This is unsustainable. You can't keep taxing people out of their homes. You can't keep raising taxes beyond what people can afford. Government is spending money, but they don't ask us if we can afford it. Do you realize that in 2019, before Governor Whitmer got into office, we were spending $58.5 billion. 58.5. In 6 short years, well, they've really been long years, haven't they? But in 6 short years, she has increased our budget. Our spending is north of $80 billion. In that amount of time, it took us 150 years to get to 58.5. And in 6 years, she's zoomed us up to 83. And it's going to continue to keep going unless we do something to bring it to a screeching halt. But all of the time that I've spent in Lansing talking to these people, mostly the Republican, mostly the House reps, I was able to talk to a few senators. They don't want to talk to me anymore. But I'm like, please help us. Please help us. I was going around the state already talking about the first time we did Axe My Tax. And just talking to people and hearing what everybody's stories were. And even today, I get text messages, I get phone calls, I get emails from people all of the time telling me their story about what's happening to them. And the loss of their house, the loss of their farm, the loss of their business. It doesn't, because the government doesn't care. You could lose your spouse and the government will happily take your house. You could lose your job and they will happily take your farm away. Whatever it might be. They don't care what the reason is of why you cannot afford your property taxes. They don't care that they're outspending what we are making. They just don't care. We're just a number to them. And we need to change that. So when I would go to Lansing, I would sit down and I would talk to these people and I'm like, help us out, what can we do? What can we do to give people property tax relief? Because you can't keep making homeless people we don't take care of. And it's costly. It's costly. It costs us a lot of money. The taxpayers have to pay a lot of money to take care of homeless people. Because, right, we pay property taxes, we pay all of those taxes, we provide services. Why not just let them stay in their house? That would be better for all of us, right? People in Lansing didn't seem to want to help. There's a few House reps and there's a few senators that I could talk to. But really what bothered me the most was one of them that I talked to the most. He said he has written a few bills to reform property tax for us. But he said, Karla, he goes, I know you want to totally eliminate it. And there's many reasons why. But he can only pick away at it. Like here's a block of ice and he's got an ice pick and he's just going to chip away at that big block of property tax. Little tiny sliver at a time. And he said because he has to make it palatable enough for the other legislators to vote on it. I'm like, what the heck? We're losing our homes. And you're trying to appease them. You know, it's our homes. It's our property that you're taking away. It's our tax dollars. We elected you. We pay you. And now we have to like make it palatable enough for you to vote on, to allow us to stay in our homes. They're going to come back and ask you, right, for donations. They're going to come back and ask you to vote for them again. What are you going to say? I'm going to say, no, sorry, you're not representing me. We have one that has presented 2 property tax reform bills, and neither one of them have support, not even from the other people in his party. We have a senator who has proposed a property tax reform bill, and she could not get her support for that, not even from people in her own party. So what are we going to do? Karla's going to go to Lansing and just take an axe to the budget. Because what I am seeing is that they don't want to help us because they're too busy appeasing other people. And yet, like I said, we're the ones that not only elect them, we pay for them to be there. And we are the last ones that they are listening to. And I think it's time for a little comeuppance for these people that are in Lansing. I don't know what else to say because we can't go on like this. Everything that I talk about, when I talk about the property tax elimination, based on a lot of research. But again, it tells me why can I be governor? Because property tax elimination is going to force that government reprioritizes its spending. at all levels. Township level, county level, state level. You know what? We're going to send you less money to spend. So you better be smarter about how you spend what we send you, right? They're going to have to prioritize, and you better cover my essential services. Because I'm going to be really, really upset if the house that I paid on property taxes and a mortgage on for a long time, you let burn down because you don't want to cover my fire. I want my fire, I want my police, I want my county roads. Those things are essential. What is the government supposed to provide us? They are supposed to protect your life. They are supposed to protect your liberties, and they are supposed to protect your property. That's it. Not provide me with a pickleball. I don't need a pickleball court. And especially not, did you know I was going to say that? You've heard me say that. Because in my township, we built a pickleball court, and then they basically forced us to vote yes on a fire millage. And I'm like, why didn't you take the pickleball court money and apply it to that fire truck so that we could have at least lessened the amount of millage, or maybe not even had the need for that, because that millage is costing me $349 a year to protect my home. But I don't want the pickleball court, and I don't play pickleball. So I mean, a lot of people do, but you know what? It's not essential to life. We talk about education. I talk about how can we need to reform not only education and the quality of our education, we need to reform or change how we're going to fund public education. I will tell you right now, Lansing is they look at how many kids, K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade, and they say there's 1.4 million in Michigan that fall into that age group or that grade group, right? 1.4 million. And that is what they figure the public school aid fund on, that 1.4 million. What they don't tell you is 400,000 of them no longer go to public school. They're going to private schools, charter schools, and they're homeschooled. Okay? So why are we funding 1.4 million public school kids when there's only 1 million going? Why are we making it so difficult for people to have a choice? We need to have a better choice on where our kids can go to school, because until the public schools get their crap in order, I think more kids should go to public school or charter school, private schools or charter schools or be homeschooled. I think that needs to be made much easier, and I think the state needs to stay out of our religious schools. The state does provide some funding for charter schools, but charter schools don't get any of your local property tax dollars, okay? They get some state funding, but not as much as what the normal public schools get. Homeschools get very little, and I think we need to change that, and I think we need to make it way better than what it is today. I grew up on a farm, so farming is very near and dear. Small farm. In fact, my dad went and worked at the post office because he had a small farm. He had free labor in the shape of us kids, so we could help him farm when he was working at the post office, and he would come home from the post office and he'd work again on the farm. And here in Michigan, when we have such beautiful, wonderful agricultural land, the soil here and stuff, we are ruining it with these solar farms and wind turbines and all this other garbage that we do not need. If you remember, it was Governor Whitmer and her push for the Green Deal. We hardly ever knew anything about solar farms or wind turbines, and then all of a sudden, boom, now it's just being shoved down our throat, and she's going to keep shoving it down our throat. With property tax elimination, we're going to go back to that in a minute, but if we eliminate property taxes, we'll have a whole bunch of farmers that won't have to sell their land to solar farms or wind turbines, right? Because they won't have property taxes to try to afford, right? Then maybe their families can stay farming, or maybe they can sell their property to someone else that wants to keep farming that land. Because I think there's a lot of farmers out here that are getting pinched by property taxes, even though they might be in a federal program or this or that or whatever else, and then they make it very difficult for you to sell your property, to get a few bucks, to pay property taxes. All of that needs to be really researched and looked into. I don't mind solar panels if they're going to be in a parking lot or on a roof of a Walmart or something where Walmart can get free electricity or free power plus let's power the rest of the city. Hallelujah! But not on our farmland.
But they don't
That just
work.
makes any sense.
They don't work.
They don't. I don't think they work either. But you know what? If they prove to be they work, there's a lot better places to put it than on our good farmland. We will never get it back. We'll never get it back. It'll be contaminated, and there's a whole bunch of stories about that. What I'm saying is the whole new Green Deal. We know Governor Wagner hasn't been. She's just not been fixing our roads, and all of a sudden we see cones. But you know, she wants to spend $28 million to research if she should charge us a mileage.
Yeah.
So why don't you just spend the $28 million to fix part of the roads, right? We don't need research of that kind. You see the MEDC, if you saw what happened with the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development, $20 million went to a friend of hers. Okay, all of this money that is being spent, that's our money. And they want to tell us that we can't eliminate property taxes. The MEDC, the SOAR, NDOT, DNR, there's so many programs and departments and commissions in Michigan that need to be investigated, readdressed, and possibly reformed or eliminated to get us back to that budget of around $50 billion. So how do you cut $30 billion? That's a big slice, but it can be done. Because 6 years ago, that's where we were at. What has changed in our lives in the last 6 years that was worth $30 billion of spending? Nobody knows. A lot of it went to companies where we were paying them, bribing them to come to Michigan, paying them to come here, for giving them property tax, and then the jobs never came to fruition. They took our money and ran. So we talk about economic development. I talk about that again, property tax elimination. If we don't have property taxes here, we will get more businesses to come to Michigan. And when businesses come, because there's no property tax, people will come because there's no property tax and there's jobs. We see this happening now, right? Because businesses and people are leaving Michigan, and where are they going? To states with less state income tax, less property tax, and more jobs. Okay, so it's easy, folks. It's easy. We just don't have anyone in Lansing with the desire to do anything. They're not going to help us. They don't want to help us. The people in Lansing already said about the Axe My Tax petition, Karla, you need to do it. You need to do it because we won't get enough support. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You'll get support from all these people out here. All of these people would love if you would stand up and say, I want to eliminate property tax. But they don't want to because they don't want to be the laughing stock. It's okay for me to be the laughing stock, and I'll take that on because I don't really care. I'm trying to speak for the people of the state of Michigan. I met with people from Matt Hall's office. So Matt Hall is the Speaker of the House. I met with the people from his office. They sat down, I gave them a whole folder full of information. I said, I'm here representing the people of the state of Michigan. Property tax, something needs to change. This is unsustainable. We can't keep doing it. And you know what? Nothing. Crickets. Crickets. And then they say, we can't be the laughing stock. Okay, well, I guess Mr. Trump is a laughing stock then because he's talking about elimination of property taxes, isn't he? Governor DeSantis is. Vivek Ramaswamy is. Governor Abbott of Texas, he did property tax reform. The governor of Nebraska reformed their property tax. Indiana and Illinois, for goodness sakes, beat us. They are all looking at it. Why? Because they recognize the fact that those states are all losing people and businesses to other states. And they can't sustain the loss. So something different has to happen. But they're not going to do it. And I don't know how we convince them that we need to, except by doing a citizens initiative petition to say, now the people of the state of Michigan have spoken, and this is what we want. And you're going to have to put it into play the way it's written. And too bad if you don't like it. But you know what? I said before, we could do a citizens initiative petition to go back to paper ballots and hand counts. Why are they fighting about all of this election integrity stuff? They've spent 5 years and a whole lot of money and a lot of court time and whatever else talking about election integrity. Okay, let's just go back to paper ballots and hand counting, and we could do that with a citizens initiative petition. Let's go to part-time legislation.
Save some
Like 44 other states. That might save the taxpayers of the state of Michigan maybe $500 million right off the bat, because they basically are part-time. And the biggest thing is like, let's get them out of Lansing, where they're in the hands of the lobbyists, and let's get them back home, where they have to talk to the constituents. Because they don't come and talk to us when they want to get reelected. They just go to Lansing. They go and find a lobbyist that will pay them what they need to get reelected, because they're too afraid or too ashamed to come back and talk to you. There's a couple of good ones that will actually do what they promised that they were going to do. And they're good with talking to their constituents, but very few. Very few. They might call you and ask you for a donation. They might send you an invite to a fundraiser or something like that. But do they know your name? No. Not at all. Everything, if you have my list, you have the list here. This is a to-do list. This is something that I sat down, somebody asked me, well, Karla, what's your platform going to be if you run for governor? And in about 3 minutes, I rattled this off. Because I've been talking about property taxes for so long, but property taxes, like I said, is the culmination of a lot of research. And it talks, and all of these things, half of the things on this list would be taken care of with the elimination of property tax. And I know this, economic development, like I said. If we don't have property taxes, we'll get businesses and people coming back. What happens when you have businesses and people coming back? Your state income tax coffers go up, right? Your sales tax coffers go up. All of your income, all of your revenue buckets go up, right? Farming, we talk about, I have farming in here. I talk about election integrity. I talk about the DNR, making Michigan the sportsman's paradise that it once was. Because that is a revenue stream that we've pretty much lost. When you have sportsmen, my son and my grandkids are huge sportsmen. They don't hunt here in Michigan anymore, except on the youth hunt. Why? Because there's nothing big and famous here in Michigan to hunt anymore. Because we haven't managed it properly. Wisconsin did a antler point program. It was great. They seemed to love it, and we could be doing that here. And when you have a good Michigan sportsman's paradise, you now get hunters, you now get people staying at your hotels, they're eating at your restaurants, they're buying gas at the gas station, they're buying lottery, they're buying liquor, they're buying whatever they're doing when they go on their hunting trips, whatever they're doing. But it's a revenue source that for Michigan has kind of died. We have to talk about reforestation. We have a lot of lumber here in Michigan, but we buy 84% of our stick lumber from our neighbors to the north. Well, theirs are all under fire, so I'm not sure if we're going to be buying much from them anymore. But why don't we do something here with the resources that we have? I just feel like some people in Lansing are just a little bit too lazy to look at all of that stuff. You know, they did write a bill about cryptocurrency, and we did write a bill to remove sales tax off feminine products. So, right? But can we please do something that's really going to help or benefit the people of the state of Michigan? This is home to us. This is home to us. Some of us have been here for multi-generations. We don't want to leave, but don't you kind of feel like you're being forced out? That's how I feel. I've been here. I was born in Ottawa County. I've been here. I'm 64 years old. I don't want to move, but you know what? I'm thinking about that more and more. And I think, what a shame. Because I want to be here. I love this state. My family's here. My family's buried here. My kids are here. My grandkids are here. Why do I want to leave? But you're leaving because of financial reasons. People are having to move out of state because they cannot afford to live here anymore. And we need to change that. Because there's nothing more important in a state than the people. It's the people. And we have to remember that the people are more important than the party. Because we keep getting messages from our party that we have to do something in the alignment of, or the way that they want us to do it, what we should be doing for the party. But what is the party doing for the people? And I don't see them doing anything for us right now. I really don't. I really don't. So, you know what? I'm running as a Republican, but I'm kind of a Ronald Reagan Republican. And I tell people that, because that's how old I am. I said there wasn't a spot on the form for a Christian conservative constitutionalist. I couldn't check. There was no box there for that. But that is what I would have run on. That is what I believe in, right? The way we're going to do that is by cutting costs. We have to cut. It's just keep looking at this. Because of my law enforcement thing, I think we need to do a lot with law enforcement. We need to do stuff with prison reform. I've talked to people that have been in a very nasty foster care system that needs to be looked into. Welfare benefits, I'm all for helping people, but you know what? Somebody just came out and said every month, the taxpayers of the state of Michigan, we give $270 million to the SNAP program. I have nothing against the SNAP program. $270 million a month is what we pay for that program, and they're saying about a third or 90 million of it is scammed every month. So 90 million of it is not going where it's supposed to go. So where's it going? How many of you remember the unemployment issue that happened during COVID? Somewhere in the state of Michigan, the people running the unemployment agency spent somewhere between $8 billion and $19 billion in fraudulent insurance claims. Billion! Are you kidding me? 8 to 19, that's a pretty big range. It's bad enough that you lost 18 or 8, but it could have been up to 19, and you don't even know how much you lost, let alone where it went or how in the heck you lost it. But as a small business owner, I got a letter saying, yeah, your unemployment insurance is going up because the coffers are empty. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't do that. Had nothing to do with that. Who's not doing their due diligence? There is so much waste. And people go, Karla, how are you going to replace property taxes? I don't want to replace waste. I don't want to replace waste. President Trump has shown us that there are trillions of dollars of waste at the federal level, and we know ourselves, there's billions of dollars of waste at the state level, there's millions of dollars of waste at the county level, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars of waste even at your township level. And every time they waste $1, somebody loses their home. Isn't that what's happening? Why do we lose our homes? It goes into foreclosure, right? Why does it go into foreclosure? Because you can't afford your property tax bill. What's on the property tax bill? Millages. Millages that we vote yes on for services we don't even use. And yet, if you can't afford that bill, your house gets taken away. There's so many things that need to be addressed in Lansing. Where do we start? This is the beginning of Karla's to-do list. Like I said, I rattled this off in like 3 minutes, just because I see everything that needs to be done, everything that needs to be addressed. But I don't see anybody really wanting to talk about it. They talk about things that make them comfortable. They talk about things that maybe, hey, like I said, cryptocurrency or something like that. It doesn't affect us. Now what are they doing? Now they want to pass a bill that they're going to take away cell phones. They're going to actually pass a legislative bill to take away cell phones from kids in school. The teachers can do that. The principals already have the right to do that if they wanted to. Why do we have to make a bill? Do you know how much it costs to initiate every bill, to actually put it into law? It costs about $500,000 to put a bill into law. So, and they just keep doing it, and they keep doing it, and they keep doing it. Why? They're restraining us as much as they can. We're being over-regulated. We're over-feed. You know, I mean, I get this letter all the time that says, oh, your annual reporting. So, like, for every little business I have to do an annual filing. It costs $25. Oh, my goodness. Are you kidding me? 25 years, you know, whatever. I have a well at my business, and I have to write a check to the state for my well. Why? They don't come out and inspect it. Just because I have a well on my business property, I have to write a check to the state. How many other things do we write checks to the state? Where does all of that money go, goodness sakes? The lottery is something that you'll look on here, and what I think I have it on here, maybe if I forgot. Let's go back and redo the lottery. In 1972, when we started the lottery, we were paying the winners 45 cents out of every dollar. The school got a bunch, right? But now we're paying the winners 61 cents out of every dollar, so the schools are getting what? A lot less. Which is why the lottery never replaced the state education tax on your property tax bill. That's what it was supposed to do. The lottery was supposed to replace the state education tax. And then we had the Headley Amendment. And we went from 4 cents to 6 cents on every dollar in sales tax. And that was supposed to replace the state education tax off your property tax bill. 2 strikes. House Rep DeSena wrote a bill to remove the state education tax off your property tax bill, and he can't get any support for it. That's 3 strikes. They're out. They're out. We need a huge shakeup in Michigan. I've always said we need to take the state of Michigan, turn it inside out, upside down, give it a good hard shake, and reset it. We need a total reboot. We need to be better going to our township meetings, our county meetings, and we need to be better at who we're electing. You need to come to things like this and listen to the people that are trying to get your vote and your support. Because there's a lot of them out there, and they give a lot of lip service. But what have they done? I will tell you, the last 5 years, I've put my heart, my soul, my money, and mileage on my truck, 40,000 miles on my truck. Before I even thought of running for an office to try to fix Michigan. Because this is what's important to me. And I've taken a lot of time away from my family, from my business, from my parents, from my kids, from my grandkids to do this. And all I ask is for you to ask every one of those other gubernatorial candidates where they've been the last 5 years. You know, we did this once before, the Ask My Tax petition, the Citizens Initiative petition. We did it once before. And those people in Lansing saw what we were doing. And I kept telling them, I would talk to them and I'm like, this is what the people want. This is what the people want. I'm going around the state, I'm talking to people and listening to their stories. You have to do something. Do something. And you know what? Here we are again, doing another Citizens Initiative petition. Why? Not because we didn't do enough. It's because they did nothing. They did nothing. They were more than happy to let us go through this whole process again. Take away our whole summer. Take away our months of your lives to circulate a petition to hopefully get enough signatures to get on the ballot, to be able to get the opportunity to vote to eliminate property tax, and they're all just sitting in their chairs watching us and seeing if we're going to get it done. And I've said to a few of them, you know what? If I have to do this, Karla, you have to do it, Karla. You have to do it with the people. Well, if I have to do it, then I want you to leave your check, the check that we pay you, at the cost or risk of us losing our property, you leave the damn check on your chair and leave. Go. And get out of our way. At least get out of our way and let us do this. But when they start, like Matt Hall, naysaying, oh, we can't eliminate property tax, and I call them out. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. If there's will, there's way. And we can do it if you want to do it. But if you're just going to say, no, we can't because we have to appease this group or we have to appease that group, then you're right. It's not going to happen. But what would happen if we all just stopped paying our property taxes? I've thought about that. I just say, let's just stop paying them. Put that money in a savings account, knowing that, hey, my property taxes are $7,200 a year, take that money, put it in a savings account for yourself. And let's not pay them our property taxes for 1 year. See what happens. Maybe they'll come and start listening to us. I don't know. Keep voting down every millage, right? Because when you vote down a millage, where are they going to get the money? They keep asking me, where's replacement revenue going to come from, Karla? I don't know. I don't care. But you know what? When we vote down your millage, where are you going to get the money from? We're trying to tell you to find a different revenue stream. We don't have to raise sales tax. We don't have to raise income tax. Stop spending our money foolishly. We are more than willing to pay for essential services. I love my police, I love my fire. And we need the county roads to make sure the police and fire can get to us in the wintertime, because we live in Michigan, right? I want to be able to have the right to vote. So I'm not taking away the right to vote. That's not what we're doing. We're funding the essential services and we're protecting the essential services, but we are going to make it darn hard for them to raise taxes. They're going to need a 2/3 majority vote. They can't even get 2 people to agree in Lansing. You think they're going to get a 2/3 majority vote? And locally, they're going to need 60%. 60%. I've seen villages pass with about 6% of people showing up. So they're going to need 60%. Locally, passing new taxes or anything like that. So I'm talking a lot about Ask My Tax, but it is because of Ask My Tax that I decided to run for governor. Because as I'm doing this, I'm seeing no help coming from Lansing. No desire to help us. They see what we do. They see the amount of circulators. They're seeing our signs everywhere. They see people everywhere. They see our Facebook posts being reposted and reposted and reposted, and they're starting to get scared. They're starting to worry a little bit, right? Because they see how active we're becoming. And that is what we need. We need for them to be more respectful of us. Because we are the ones that put them there. We are the ones that are paying them to be there. They need to start listening to us, not the lobbyists, and not to each other. This is not about their agenda. This is about our agenda, our lives, and our property. Who's got questions? Yes, sir.
What if we have, I can see us paying the property taxes. I can see the end coming back and saying, okay, so we're trying to fund those essential services. It's the fault of the people who took away the property tax.
No,
We have a place to start.
it's in the petition. The petition funds the property taxes. It's right in the language of the petition that the essential services will be funded by constitutional revenue sharing, which is already occurring. So every township in the state of Michigan already receives a portion of the sales tax bucket constitutionally. Okay, so every township gets that money. We are also in the petition requiring a constitutional mandate to take a portion of the state income tax, the alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco taxes to be passed down to the counties and to the townships to fund essential services and then protect that funding so it can't be used for anything other than essential services.
Villages that are already in effect, those go away too right away, or are they going to have to be run to the end of their?
They will have to be paid or renegotiated, but not on property taxes. So the townships and the counties are going to have to kind of come together and figure out. So what he's asking is that we have the current millages, right? So maybe we're 5 years into a 20-year millage, and we eliminate property tax. What's going to happen to that, the balance of that 15 years? So number one, I will tell you, the Rockford Public Schools, we have a Parks and Recs millage. It's a 20-year millage. They're getting $2.5 million the first year, and every year after that, they'll get more money. It's for community ed and playground equipment and football fields. $2.5 million a year. So if we're 5 years into that and we eliminate property tax, they've already got $2.5 million stashed away, right? I think we don't need to. Why would you have to keep paying for the next 15 years at $2.5 million a year if they haven't replaced, we only have 8 playgrounds in the Rockford Public School. You're not going to spend $2.5 million a year replacing playground equipment on 8 playgrounds. And you're not going to do it every year, right? So in that instance, I would renegotiate that contract and say, that's all you're getting. You got $12.5 million of our money. It just sits right there. We're not paying the last 15 years. Now, if it's something where the money has already been spent, of course that is going to have to be paid off. And the townships and the counties are going to have to figure that out in their budget, how they do it. Or, depending on what it is, some muni bonds. Anybody familiar with municipal bonds? Because I have my securities license for a while. Okay. My great uncle was the Georgetown Township supervisor in Ottawa County for a long time. They did a lot with muni bonds. And that what they do is they sell. Like if they said, we need to run a sewer line. Like, we need to run a sewer line from there to there, but this is empty space. There's houses here, houses there. We need to connect to these 2 plots, but there's too much vacant land, which will be developed. They run the sewer line, they sell muni bonds to investors. So if Rod says, hey, I'll throw in $10,000, this gentleman goes, I'll throw in $10,000. They would sell muni bonds to people. And then as people developed and hooked up to that sewer line, they paid people back with interest. That's a muni bond. That's kind of so you know what? Do that. Come up with something. I don't care what it is. Be creative. Think outside the box. Because it's our land that's going to be taken away if they don't start using their brains. They need to get more creative with how that stuff is going to be done. But yes, they do need to be paid, but there will be no more property tax. Yes?
This is a fantastic list. So as governor, what legal authority do you have to do this?
The same as Governor Whitmer. I'm just saying, look at what she has done to our state with all those executive orders and stuff that she has written. I mean, she's killed us, literally. And you know what? She's just, oh well, and the thing is that what I'm hoping is that whoever gets picked as governor, that they are able to inspire the House reps and the senators to write decent bills that will make a difference for the lives of the people here. Because right now they're not. They're coming up with a lot of their stuff is not, it's like, okay, that's great, whatever, but it doesn't help us. How does that help us? Whatever they're doing, they're going to add like another $1.8 billion to the school aid fund. Nothing like throwing good money after bad. They're like, well, our scores are so bad, we better give them more money. No. You know what? If I have a department that's not performing, I don't keep dumping more money into it. I reassess, I look at it and go, you know what? We're not going to make that product anymore because it doesn't sell. That's what you do. These people, I don't know how many of these people really, what scares me about, and I hate to say this, but what scares me about the people that we elect, what qualifications do we expect them to have? Like I said, I have a lot of accounting experience. I have a lot of financial experience. I did financial planning for people. I did trade stocks and that kind of stuff. But in every business that I did, I was the small business owner. And I did my own bookkeeping. I did taxes. I did all that. And so you learn. It's like you have to know the difference between assets and liabilities and debit and credit. And you got to have money in the checkbook before you write a check. That's not what's happening at the state right now. They're writing checks and then going, oh, Mr. Taxpayer, better open up your wallet. We need more money. We need to be better at electing the people that we're sending to Lansing to represent us, because if they don't do a budget at home, if they don't balance their checkbook at home, please resign. Please resign. Please do not think you are qualified to do that job, because you are managing the state's budget, and that takes some skill, that takes some knowledge. They have to be able to look long term. So the pink tax, right? You remember this? What they did was they removed the sales tax off feminine products. Save each woman maybe $20 a year, right? Right? Big whoop. You save a woman $20 a year, but it costs the state $7 million in sales tax. Okay? Where does that $7 million in sales tax, where does it go? It goes to the schools, and it goes down to the township. So we just robbed the schools in the township of $7 million to save each woman $20 a year. Does that make any sense? What about the state income tax? 4.25, right? 4.25. And I think they tried to write a bill, and I don't know if it passed, to reduce it to 4.05. And the Republicans were all patting themselves on the back. Oh, look at what we did. We reduced the state income tax. And I made a phone call. And I said, stop. Put your arm down. Because with the median wage being $60,000 in Michigan, going from 4.25 to 4.05 saved you $10 a month. $120 a year. Woohoo! But they're excited. They're so excited that they can talk about that and like, this is what we did for you. I'm like, that's nothing. Keep it. Put it on the debt. Do something with it. I don't know, because $10 a month, I can't really go to Starbucks for that. Right? I mean, so when they look at what they're doing, and I'm like, are you really paying attention to the long-term effect, or even to the short-term effect? Or are you really looking at what is this doing to help the people of Michigan? It's going to cost $500,000 to put that bill into effect. And you're going to save somebody $10 a month. That to me is like a slap in the face. This is what we're paying you, what, $75,000 a year for a state rep? Plus they get a stipend, plus they get a couple of admins, you know, whatever. And this is the best you can come up with? That is what, it's so frustrating to me how much money that we're paying and for the results that it's kind of like they must have all gone to public school. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's clear we need a game changer. We talk with the schools, Detroit public schools, 88% of the kids cannot read at third grade level. $16,000 a year they were getting 2 years ago. So I checked with parochial school, third grade, they have a pre-K to 12. It was $13,000 a year was that. And I asked them, what's your reading score? They said, well, we don't do that. We test above that grade level. And in their brochures, they've got kids every now and then are getting 100% on the testing. Okay, so money isn't the whole thing. What we've got, and we know that Michigan has 10 of the 100 most dangerous cities in America. Okay, we have some really problems there. We know that fatherlessness is 85% of our prison population. Yet at the same time, we all see that the guy who runs away, he gets off easy, while the guy who stays gets hammered. The reason that is found in Congressional Research Report 84796 EPW on page 9, the federal government is paying the states an incentive to make children fatherless. We get $242 million a year as the best we've gotten, yet we spend $1.95 billion on prisons. Even at 70%, and leaving, a conservative sense, that would be $1.3 billion per year. And I think you can fix your damn roads with that.
There's so much. So what he's talking about, there's so many rabbit holes. There's so many rabbit holes that you could go down, and I think a lot of these people in Lansing just won't do it. They won't do it. Either whether they don't want to spend the time, they don't want to spend their energy, they don't know what they're looking at, might be a possibility. There's so much in Michigan that is wrong, but we have to have leadership that is going to take that on and actually go after things and fix things. And I just don't know how we find that person that wants to take that on, like I've done with the property tax elimination. People say it can't be done. People have been saying, well, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, but we're doing it. But we're doing it. You saw how many circulators. How many circulators? How many again? I love that. Look at that. Look at how many people are currently circulating the Axe My Tax petition. They're not getting paid. Why are they doing it? Why are you doing
property.
it? They have property.
They raised my
They want to save other people's property.
I don't want to screw my neighbor.
Yeah, you know what, I want my grandkids to be able to own a home someday, but if we keep voting yes on villages, we're just front loading their debt, and they will never be able to own a home. You know, when I built my first house in 1981, there was 3 line items on my property tax bill. 3. And now, some people have 2 pages of line items that they're paying for on their property tax bill. It has to be done differently, yes.
I remember during your last run, you told the story of how you stopped the village because you went to the guy at school and asked him to show you what money he had, how you can spend it. And I remember that, and I'm thinking, how can we do that? Now, I just got an email from a guy in my district, school district, wanting to come to our meeting to talk about why we need another village for the schools. So, how can we, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm confused, how can we actually audit or go into the current villages and see what's going on with them?
Well, you certainly can. I mean, you can call your township clerk, call your school, whoever the village or the bond is for, right? So I just had somebody call me from Ionia, and they're like, Karla, we have a bond. We have a meeting on a new bond. So think about this. There's a bond that's expiring, and they want to extend it for 2 years, just as a tie-over or a layover until they can ask for more, bigger money in 2 years' time. Because this is what they told this lady. We don't want people to get used to not paying it. Because when it ends now, we don't want people to see that noticeable drop in their property taxes. So we're going to ask for a 2-year extension on this bond, so that when we ask for the bond to be bigger later, it won't seem like such a jump. I don't even know what to say to that. I'm like, that is, but the thing is that when we don't go to our township meetings, oh my gosh, I've gone to some of my township meetings, and I'm not the only one sitting there, and they're spending money, they're writing checks like, woo, let's do a chalkboard, let's do a splash pad, let's do this, let's do that, let's spend money down, let's send money to the county parks for a gazebo, from Cannon Township. I mean, it's crazy, and it's our money. Do they ever think about giving it back? And I don't know if you people realize this. Look, if Rod owns a house and he's going to sell it tomorrow to this gentleman right here, the township or the county, they're going to make more money tomorrow on the very same house that Rod is selling, right? If he's paying $4,000 in taxes today, when he sells that house to that gentleman right there, they're going to get $6,000. $2,000 more, right? Then you build new houses in your community. Their tax base goes up, right? Collectability of those taxes, it goes up. You get a new business coming into the community. They get more money. How come our taxes never go down? If you have a $2 million budget, and now instead of 1,000 houses paying for that $2 million, you have 1,200, why doesn't your property tax ever go down? Because they're spending it as fast as we send it to them. We need to stop sending it to them. The villages, I was down in Branch County, they called me last time before May. They were like, Karla, please come down before the May election. We want you to talk to these people. And you know what? They turned that village down. And those people, because it just took education. Just took educating people like, look, if you vote yes on that millage, your property taxes will go up. And even if you're a renter, if you vote yes on that millage, you just raised your landlord's property taxes and your rent's going up. So don't think it doesn't affect you. And if you, as my business, where I sell bacon and eggs, if you raise my property taxes, the cost of your bacon and eggs is going to go up. Property taxes affect all of us negatively. It's a regressive tax that needs to be gotten away with. As governor, that will be my main focus, is property tax elimination. Why? Because we have to stop the steal, we have to stop the bleeding, we have to stop taking people's homes for services that they don't use, and then we can figure out what's the true shortfall of not collecting, because there'll be a savings of not collecting property taxes, right? We don't need an assessor, we don't need an assessing department, we don't need somebody sending out the property tax bills, we don't need to clog the courts up with foreclosures. There will be a savings of not collecting property tax. And then there will be a benefit, an economic benefit of not having property taxes because of the businesses and the people that will come back. We don't want to replace the waste. And you know what? How much of the stuff on your property tax bill should be paid by the person using the service? When you go to the zoo, buy a ticket. You already do. Why is it on my property tax bill? I don't know. I do not want to lose my house to the monkey in the zoo. Okay? Yes.
So I went to see Tom Cruise today, because he was in Claire, Hot Donuts, and then I came to Reed City. Did anybody go to the Reed City meeting? Yeah. Awesome. And so the first thing he asked me when he seen me is, "Are you going to Karla's meeting tonight?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, and I knew he was coming to Reed City. I said, "Are you going to go?" And he's like, "No, I can't go." Well, anyway, so what I come up with, because I'm kind of like the north side in Claire because I'm for this kind of thing. And I said, if you ask me, Karla's the only one that can tighten the balance on the mitten state because she is willing to get rid of the property taxes. And I said, all the other candidates for governor, if anybody else gets into that position, all they're going to do is whine and complain that we don't have the property taxes and that it's our fault that they don't have the money to spend because they don't have property taxes. And I'm like, Karla can balance the budget and tighten the belt, and so I was really giving you some plugs today with that.
Thank you. Well, it's so funny because when I was talking about the unemployment fraud, it was Tom Coots that I called and talked to, and I got his number from so blame on that. But, because I looked it up and I said, you know what? Why aren't we going after that money? I want to go after that money. 8 to 9, I don't know what the statute of limitations is on something like that. I want to go back after that money. That's our money. What could that buy us? That could buy us no property taxes. The money that they spent would mean no property taxes are needed, right? So why they didn't, all they did was they swept it under the rug. No one lost their jobs. It was Mr. Coombs that was one of the Republican representatives that was looking into it and investigating it. And I'm not going to, he talked to me for about 45 minutes. It was a lovely conversation. He's not a banker. I worked at a bank. I keep getting the little static here. I worked at a bank. So the first thing I asked him was, I said, did we go after the banks? He goes, well, why would you go after the banks, Karla? Because they didn't do their due diligence on setting up accounts that money was going to. Right? Because if you're going to send an unemployment check or direct debit to somebody, it has to be received in an account set up at a bank. Who set up all of those accounts? Where was the bank's due diligence? I worked at a bank. You pretty much had to cut off your right arm and leave it there to open up a checking account. We had to put people through so much crap in order to get that account. My girlfriend, who worked all through COVID for an attorney, they corresponded through emails and phone calls, she worked from home, she never claimed unemployment, and yet someone received $6,700 in her name that the state could then identify and came back to her, not the fraudulent person. They went back to my girlfriend and said, you need to pay that back. She goes, I never received it. She had to basically go through a court case to prove that she didn't receive that money. But what happened to the person that did? And we set up that account. And I said, was it like 2 banks that were involved? Was it 3 banks? Was it all over everywhere? Was it small community banks? Was it big banks? I want to go after those banks. I want to find out who set up all those accounts. And when I was talking, not taking anything away from Mr. Kuntz, but he was like, well, why would you do that, Karla? These are the questions that they don't know to answer or to ask. Well, if you're not asking the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers. That's all I'm saying is we need to be better about who we elect. We need to elect people that have some experience. I feel like right now we're the janitors and we're being asked to hire the CEOs. And we don't even know what their job entails. So my neighbor's running. Oh yeah, I'll vote for him because he's nice. Or, she's nice looking. Or he's this, or whatever. And it's like, those are not the qualifications for people that we want to be in Lansing representing us. We need to do better. Or we wouldn't be in the spot that we are in today. Because we elected these people, and we put them there. And now we gotta get rid of them. Yes.
So, I've been listening, I was part of Goshen and all of this, so I've been listening to a lot of things for the last few years, and as an old lady. And, you start learning as the older you get, a little bit wiser, right? And we all are older, and we've kind of been living it. So it's a drone, right? We're starting to get to that point where, like, it's getting crazy and making us mad. So my question is, it's a question statement. I see X my tax. Nothing's going to change until a seismic something from the percolation of going from the ground up happens. Like something that does shock them, surprise them. Something like an X my tax that came from the people. How close are we to getting it on the ballot? And how are we making sure that everyone in the state understands it as best as they can? What's your gut on this right now? Is that passing? Because what I'm thinking is nothing's going to change because people are busy and they don't have time to research and all this stuff. But if one good big thing happened that forced their car, you know what I mean? This could be it. This is kind of like our volcano. You've got it going. You got to look at all the people. They've been all over wasting their summers, or spending their summers, not wasting, and percolating this thing up. If it could explode, that's a ticket to say, change. Because other than that, because we're hearing from a local level too, and our neighbors, when it comes to we have a village in Reed City, if we turned it down, they're coming at us again in November. But it's only $350 a year. This is their attitude. And how dare you, don't you love the children? And I hate the guilt trip. It's driving me insane.
I always tell them I love them so much that I don't want to saddle them with any more debt. That would make it impossible for them to buy a home and live the American dream.
That's my thing. So how are you feeling about this program? I think it is one of the key things. It's what we have. It is grassroots. I don't see another thing that could be so seismic to get all the leaders either up, from local all the way to state, right? That would really we have to do it.
Yeah.
It has to do it.
Absolutely. We're a lot farther ahead this year than what we were last time because we started with a much bigger army and a better educated army. But I'm going to tell you, 600,000 in 180 days is not easy for a small grassroots group that has no money, right? So when I was being told by the MIGOP, Karla, you need to get this on the ballot, you need to get it on the ballot. It's the only thing that'll bring people out to vote for candidates in 2026. That's all they're worried about. They're worried about who's going to vote for their candidate. They're not really worried about helping us get tax on the ballot or helping it succeed. So this really is a grassroots effort, and people are busting their butt. And you know what? No matter, we all want to win. We all want to win. But like you said, we have made so much noise. We are forcing everybody to talk about it. Tom Leonard, if anybody saw our post on Facebook today, Tom Leonard came out with a t-shirt that pretty much looks exactly like ours with the red silhouette and everything like that. And it says, lower property taxes. Tom Leonard. It has our red, and somebody said, hey, you must have missed the memo. It's supposed to be eliminate property taxes. we're getting that.
Are we getting our signatures? How is it looking?
It's looking good. We haven't even started counting them yet. It's just pedal to the metal, get the signatures, because we're going to go through the end of October. We'll go into November if we need to. We have a 180-day window. We have a lot more circulators today than what we had started with in April, even, right? And the momentum is building. It's huge. Just like I did an interview with Tim Skubik off the record. And had a lot of really good comments from that. But we've probably gained 60 more circulators since that thing came out. Most of them are from the east side of the state, and I would dare say a lot of them are probably not Republicans. Because that's who watches that program, right? And because we keep saying this is nonpartisan, and everybody needs to do it. So I think God's the only one that knows the number, right? And He will know, are we going to get it? Are we going to get it or are we not? Whatever happens, we need to deal with it. But we do have everyone in the state talking about it. Tom Leonard is now talking about, because as he went out to town halls, people were yelling at him, property tax elimination. So did, I did a podcast with Kevin Rinke. And Kevin Rinke said, Karla, elimination of income tax or property tax, what difference does it make? And I said, well, because property tax is still your home. That's what makes the difference. That's the difference, right? Mike Cox is still talking about the elimination of income tax, which does not keep us in our homes. Seniors hardly pay income tax, and if we eliminate income tax, it's not going to keep them in their houses. It's not going to make houses affordable, right? So we have Anthony Hudson. He's talking about property tax elimination. He kind of started that after we did. Who else do we have? A couple other people. Eric Nesbitt. Eric Nesbitt, where was he? I met with him. I met with him for a half an hour. He gave me a half hour of his time in Lansing. He was willing to sit down and listen to me, but he just didn't see it. No, he didn't see the need.
No, he didn't see it.
So, and I think this is the number one thing. This is the number one thing affecting Michigan today at a personal level, all of us, but at an economic level and so many other things. Elimination of property taxes would fix 10 things on Karla's list immediately.
Do you have like here's the top 5 comments that are coming back from the naysayer, or the person who just can't see it? They can't see it. They say the fire. They say, like, we'll talk to even our local people, like a clerk or whatever, and they just cannot
They're worried about
see it.
losing their jobs. So think about that. The municipal, we have township supervisors, township treasurers, county commissioners, sheriff's department people, law and fire. If they're not circulating the petition, they've all signed them. What does that tell you? They get it. They understand it. Like a lot of law enforcement officers, they can't even afford to live in the communities that they protect and serve because it's too expensive, right? So the ones that understand it and they see that property tax, the freedom from the stress, the financial stress from property tax elimination is going to be, I think, miraculous. I've had sheriffs come to some of my presentations, and because I rode with the sheriff's department for a little while on a volunteer basis, I know what kind of calls we went to. Domestic, it was all about finances, right? He doesn't make enough and she spends too much, and they get in a fight, and it's like, right? But that's what it is. And then it's like people want to keep a roof over their head, their kids' heads, but that bill comes twice a year, right? But every day I have to see my kid be hungry. So I go down and I rob a convenience store for bread and milk and cereal because I need to feed my kid today, right? And the property tax bill, hopefully the property tax bill, I'll be able to catch it up or pay it later or something like that. When you ask those deputies or those sheriffs, how much less depression, suicide, addiction, mental health issues will we be suffering? How much less of those if we didn't have to worry about losing our homes and our properties?
Yeah, home's a big deal. Home's a big deal.
It's a castle. It's your safe place. It's yours, right? Yes.
Somebody needs to come up with a 50 slogan.
That's what I was trying to
A
say.
what?
A 50 slogan that captures everything.
Like your counter action, your
Just
counter
something
statement.
that hits people in the gut and kind of encapsulates everything. They get context.
That's going to be a hard one.
I know.
Because it's such a complex issue.
Freedom from fear.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, there's genius people out there that can come out.
Something with
2 or 3 or 4, that you can use.
Yeah, my son-in-law is kind of working on some, and I think he's kind of come up with some cool ideas, but that gentleman way back there had a question.
My name's Kevin Beamer, and I'm on the executive committee for the 2nd Congressional District. My job is to go out and give a donation from a small business. Now, I have 4 small businesses myself, 2 side hustles. I'm up to here busy, and Ron is trying to get me to run for public office. But,
She's an instigator.
anyways, one of the things that I would love to help you, because you're the first candidate I've heard that makes total sense. One of the businesses that we run is a small adult care home. My family's been in adult care for 70 years in Everett, Michigan. I've done it for over 34 and a half years. I've hated the business for 35 years, but that's what I know how to do, and I'm pretty good at it.
And we need to fix that system,
That
don't
whole
we?
system is, it's just garbage. It's never worked, that's why you have 4 other.
The foster care, the kids' foster care program is just as bad in an adult.
But I can take petitions out, and that would be the easiest in of anything that I would have ever done. Take a petition out. Do you like paying your property taxes? Ours are coming up. I got 4 pieces of property to pay taxes on. And it's like every time you start going like this, you gotta go like this to pay your stupid property tax.
You know what, thank you so much for bringing this up, and I'm gonna just interrupt you just a real quick second, because what this gentleman is saying, again, you have to look at the bigger picture. Adult foster care, because I have a neighbor that comes in and talks to me about it all the time too, because she's like, we get like $34 a day to take care of people. It's not enough. But the Medicaid and Medicare systems, I think a lot of this with the foster kids as well.
34 cents.
34 cents. What they want is, they like kids in the system. Why? Because they can bill for them. They can bill for them. And you know what? Somebody's putting that money somewhere other than giving it to that man to take care of your adult, your parents or other people that need adult care. He's not getting it. Where is it going? We're paying it. He's not getting it.
$50.92 a month per person.
How much?
$250.92 a month to take care of somebody 24/7. And I have to staff that facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now you add their Social Security on that, you're only making about $1.80, I think it's $1.86, maybe $1.87 an hour for Medicaid funded patients. It's impossible. So you have to do other stuff. So what we do with our other businesses is we're technically working to subsidize the cost of care for people who just don't have money to take care of themselves. And you know, I'm 61, so I'm getting like, man, you know, I can't do this forever. I gotta start with the Medicaid, the horse, and
But if they were illegals, Kevin,
but
they didn't.
It's a racket.
you know, I'm more than willing to get on the bus of the tax, the axe, the tax.
Axe right there?
I could probably get like, I'm pretty sure the ECD, I used to sell advertising. So, you know, door to door, business to business to business, to get some signatures on this thing.
Thank you. Well, and you know, folks, you've all heard about, you know, President Trump when he said, we're going to fix Medicaid and Medicare, and all of a sudden that turns into, he's going to end Medicaid, he's going to end Medicare, only to those people that don't deserve it. Right? That's what he wants to do. There are people that need it and deserve it. There are people that need it and deserve it, and there's a whole lot more that don't, that are getting it, and we need to sift through that and find it. It's the same thing with unemployment, it's the same thing with welfare, it's the same thing with food stamps. Absolutely, there's a need. But you know what? We need to suss out who truly needs it, who does not need it, because we're losing our homes paying for that, and like that gentleman said, he's not getting the money to take care of it. If somebody's getting that money because they're billing for a lot, and it doesn't end up with him. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my question right now is, okay, you get the signatures, you turn them into the
Secretary of State.
The Secretary of State.
how long does she have to process that, or can she vary it, like
Nope.
stuff she's done?
It's all on a time frame. It's all on a time frame. So we're gonna collect at least through the end of October to hopefully get our 600,000 signatures. We don't have to turn them into them until like next May or June. Then they will have so many days for them to go through them and get it. And you know what, people, I'm not worried about them hiding them, because why? Because we've made too much of a stink already. Everybody in Michigan, not everybody, a lot of people in Michigan knows what we're doing, and they're gonna be the ones keeping an eye on, they're gonna be held accountable, because all of the people are gonna be going, what happened to those petitions? What happened to those petitions? Where did they go? What's happening with them? They have to do like a whole, go through them and do a whole report on why, what ones are accepting, what ones are not accepting, and that kind of stuff. Yes?
So, my name is Doug Bonico. I'm the Marion Township Supervisor. I had a dairy farm. I'm on Marion's ISD's Parent Advisors for Special Ed, so I deal a lot with public schools. I'm on Mid-Michigan Community Action Foundation Board, or not foundation, but Community Action, which does your WIC, your homeless, your winterizing houses, all those committees. I'm on Farm Bureau's policy to try and get deer processed for hunger. We're working with the state right now. We should have something coming out here, hopefully this year. So I know a lot about, and also served on the Planning Commission for the solar panels for the county here. So I know a lot about a lot of your topics, but I'm not going to get into all those, even though I want to debate every one of them. But for the people here, I don't know if you know that if you can't pay your property tax, there is an exemption for your property taxes. You go to your board of review, it's a one-page. You just have to prove that you don't have much income. There's not actually a physical dollar amount. If the board of review denies you, you can appeal to the state. I haven't heard of anyone. We have quite a few in Marion that have applied. Your property taxes, you don't have to pay them. You shouldn't lose. The state does not want you to lose your house. That's why they have that law there, is if you don't make enough money, you don't have to pay your taxes. You go to your board of review. If your board of review denies you, you can appeal it to the state. If the state's denying you, I would like to know why and how, and we go to Tom Coombs or one of our legislatures about why poverty got denied. Another one, you said your taxes got raised 70%.
71%, and I went to the board of review and they said, well, we're gonna help you, we're gonna help you, we're gonna help you.
And what happened?
They didn't help me at all, nothing.
And what about businesses?
Did they say
No,
why?
nothing.
Okay. Businesses are different.
Small businesses.
Right, you're right on that. But I'm just, for people who know in this room and know somebody who's struggling right now, because the law's not passed yet, if they need it for this year, they can get it. But my question for you on Ask My Taxes, on the revenue sharing, in our township, there's a lot of houses that aren't local people. A lot of vacation property up north here, and it says that the money's gonna be spent based on population, but we don't have as much population as people who pay because they don't live there. And then the other question is, I don't see how this can pass the federal constitution, because Article 1, Section 10, you can't compare the obligations of a contract. And that's what our bonds are, contracts. So I'm sure you've researched, so I'd like to know how it passes the federal constitution.
That's what we said, that some of those, they have to still be paid, right? But they might not be paid based on a property tax value anymore. It will have to come from other sources of revenue, not by property taxes.
But does it say, like, Winterfield Township beside me only has 400 people in the township. If you're gonna revenue share based on population, which is what it says on the ballot, they're not gonna get enough money to pay their obligations. So how would it be paid?
Okay, so there's multiple other things that kind of go into this. So when we went to our attorney, a property tax attorney, to talk about writing this petition, we are limited to what we can do with a petition. We can only touch on certain subjects. We can't certainly write a budget for all 1,240 townships and 83 counties, right, in the proposal. So, but what we are doing is, it's possible still for these townships to figure out another way of collecting that. So you're talking about townships that have a lot of out-of-state people. So if there's no property tax, there's no property tax. Even on those people that live out of state that might own a home here, they will not pay property tax. However, even like myself, my business, I'm more than willing to pay property tax for police and fire and county roads because those are essential to my business. We're not saying we don't want to pay them at all. We're just not going to pay them at the loss or possible risk of losing our property. So it's going to be up to those townships and those counties to figure out what is the shortfall, what is the need, and how do we do it? And let's make it more equal. If you have a lot of people that live out of state, if I was that township supervisor, I would say, look, half of our people live out of state. They don't use our schools, they don't go out to our libraries, they don't go to any of these other things, but our police and fire have to protect their homes because they live out of state. And I would charge them. What's the number? $200 a year for police, $200 a year for fire. It's not based on their property value. It's based on a need for that service, right? So
there just isn't. There just isn't anyone there. Most of the tax base is off consumers' gas field. It's ag land and hunting property. You know, I think there's 122 houses in the township. There's no businesses.
So, and again, our proposal is going to increase the constitutional revenue sharing. We're bumping it up, the percentage that they're going to receive. And then we're also going to take it from the state income tax, outlaw marijuana tax. I don't know, like I said, there's going to be some time. When we did the numbers, we looked at the counties. We looked at what counties were collecting, not now, but 2023, I think we did it. We looked at what the counties were currently receiving from property tax, and then we went through and we used our Act My Tax formula for what the petition spells out. There was, of the 83 counties in Michigan, there was 29 of them that would quite get as much under the new Act My Tax proposal as what they're currently getting. But that's before we're even talking about any savings, right? Because you don't need the county assessor anymore. So what's that salary? What are those other savings, and what else are you going to be able to cut? Some of them, it was a matter of a couple $100. But there was 29 of the 83 that wouldn't be made whole with the Act My Tax proposal versus what they're getting in property tax. So that is just something that by a township, what would have to happen is they have to look at it and say, what do we need? What do we need to do? Right? And I don't know because I don't know those townships.
I know in my township that you talk about hundreds of thousands and all this. I don't even bring in hundreds of thousands.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
my biggest cost is the cemeteries. Taking care of our cemeteries. I don't know if people know that, but that's not listed as an essential service. But I've got 18 acres because there used to be a lot of people there 100 years ago. I've got 18 acres that we have to weed with. I mean, you don't mow up close to headstones. There's a lot of time, and you know that's my biggest cost.
Well, so
You know.
and thank you, because these are true and real concerns, right?
Yeah.
We need to do that too.
I mean,
but I think people's houses are more important than a cemetery. I'm just going to say that, right? The living is a little bit more. But my point is, so I have townships around me that say, Karla, we don't even need to collect property taxes to operate our township because we get more than what we spend from the constitutional revenue sharing today than what their township spends. So they're like, we could totally eliminate property taxes for their township. Now they still have to collect it for those other entities. But as far as township operating, they don't need it. I was talking to this gentleman from Solon Township. You know AJ? So AJ from Solon Township?
I don't. But on my property taxes, we bring in $35,000. That's how much of the property taxes in Marion Township goes to the township. It's $35,000. That's it.
And then what do you get from constitutional revenue sharing? Probably not a lot if you don't have very many people, because that's based on population.
About 50.
50,000.
Yeah. And we spend 30 on the cemetery.
Right.
Cemeteries,
So
mowing
I
and
want
weed.
to address
You know.
that cemetery thing, because I talked to AJ from township, and he said, Karla, he sent out a postcard to everybody, every resident, and they asked him to grade the services of what was most important and what was least important. The park was the least important. The library was the second least important. Police and fire were at the top, right? Okay. So, but he goes, and I said, well, AJ, I said, what do you do with that? You know, the park. And he goes, well, our budget's like $50,000 just for the park. And I said, well, how big is the park? And he goes, well, it's right over there. It's behind the city hall. I said, do you have a not cadets, Boy Scouts? I said, do you have a Boy Scouts group here? Do you have a veterans group here? Because you could probably pay them $5,000 to $10,000 a year, and they would probably love to do it. So AJ looked at me and he goes, no, there's a novel idea. Could we reduce that budget from $50,000, give it to the people, give it to the Boy Scouts, give it to a veterans group that would love to make $10,000 a year, right, to support some of the things that they do. Sometimes we just need to think outside the box. I don't know if that would work for you, but...
We have about half of our services done from community service.
Yeah.
They bring the van up and the guys get out and do a lot of things. Yeah, that's about half of it.
And we have a lot of inmates.
Yeah.
Yes.
How much did we really get from lots? Because, I mean, I worked at a gas station one time and I seen the end of the month total. And the end of the month total can support the whole school for the whole year.
Unfortunately, I think what happens with a lot of the lottery money is not going to where it's supposed to go. But think about this, just what I said. We used to, when we started the lottery, we were paying the winners 45 cents out of every dollar. And the schools were getting the majority of it. Now we're paying the winners 61 cents out of every dollar. We pay 9 cents to the admin and to the store that sells the tickets. So that's 61 and 9 is 70. So maybe 30 cents out of every lottery dollar might be going to the schools, which is why it never replaced the state education system. Oh, I don't know. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But the last time I looked, that's what it was. But the thing is that when those winners have to pay taxes on the winnings, where does that money go?
It should go back to the schools.
It goes into the state income tax bucket. It goes into the state income tax
Plus they
bucket.
pay administration on that fee.
Yeah.
So we started going to our township meetings, and I noticed in Grant Township, they bought into the BSNA. They wanted to spend $72,000 on the BSNA program, but we started throwing a fit about it, and so they cut it in half, spent $42,000 on the BSNA accounting program, and it's going to cost $12,000 a year to service that program. Well, they left off the building and the mechanical, so they didn't even get that whole BSNA. They just got it for like the clerk and the treasurer or whatever, maybe the supervisor. And not only that, the Michigan Township Association and Hatton Township just spent $40,000 to redo their zoning ordinances, and then to pay all the attorneys and all of this and all of that. And now they want Harrison, the city of Harrison, to do the same our ordinances as well. So that Michigan Township Association is going around to all of these little communities and whatnot, wanting them to buy in on it. And it does somewhat have to do with how many residents there are. But I mean, if they weren't spending that money on those kinds of things, then they would have a lot more money.
Well, in the BSNA, like some of them, because I'm a real estate agent, there's times where I have to pay like $6.95 to access a record or something. Because I just listed up a house up in McBain, you know, and that's not in my real estate broker's area. So I had to pay that BSNA fee of $6.95 to be able to access the records up there. So we're kind of paying it, and the townships are. I don't know how that all works, but I just think, you know what? And again, I grew up a long time ago, right? And you know, but our library in our town was basically, the building was donated by somebody that was vacating the building, and then it was basically staffed by volunteers. And we did baked good sales, we did all kinds of things to buy books, people donated books and whatever else. That was the library. Now my township now is spending $1,048,000 a year to use the library in the city over from us, and they've only have like 2,200 people or swipes of the card in my township, and it's costing us $1,048,000. I just think that there's money there we need to keep people more accountable for. I'm not saying that some of it is definitely, needs to be spent, but I think there's a lot of it that just we need to monitor it a little bit more.
Over here.
Yes.
It's a different subject, but we really gotta stay on that. What's your feelings on how we stop geoengineering, poisoning our skies?
That is something that I really don't know anything about, but I think it's something that we definitely need to work on, because we've seen, all that flooding and all that stuff that's happening. That's just weird. And I think we don't need that here, just like we don't need solar and wind. We don't need, there's just so much of that, I think that, it just needs to be researched and looked at better. It can't just be crammed down our throats. I think the whole EV thing just got really out of hand, the whole new Green Deal and everything. We're cutting down trees to put solar panels. There's nothing more green than trees, right? They take the carbon dioxide out of the air and clean it, whatever. I just don't see the need for some of this other than the fact that it's lining somebody's pockets. I don't know. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you brought something good with the Ocean Project, okay? They were given state dollars by 278.
No, they were given our dollars.
Right. 270 million of our tax dollars went, millions of our tax dollars went, so Goshen could buy that for 270 acres. Now, they didn't separate the mineral rights with it. It sits in the Oregon bed potash, which is the purest potash in the world. Okay? In 2018, it was valued at $65 billion. So when you take 14,500 acres totally between Wisconsin and Osceola County, take that 270, it comes up to almost $1 billion that we just gave away. We got to be smart.
We do need to get smarter. There's a couple of other things too that I just want to touch on real quick. We have a human and sex trafficking issue here in Michigan. We're like one of the fifth highest in the United States here because of our border with Canada and Mackinac Island and all of that kind of stuff. We have a lot of our indigenous or our Native American people. They have the missing women and children, missing women and girls, indigenous. I think that is something also that needs to be addressed a lot more than what it is. I think we are addressing it somewhat. We always hear about, raids that are happening here and there and where they're rescuing these kids and stuff. But we need to get to the root of that problem. And part of that, I think, is the foster care program. I'm pretty sure that's probably a lot of the kids in that foster care system that are being trafficked as well. Other than, people that, when we make them homeless and they're living on the streets, it's very easy for them to get snatched or taken. So that is something else that I want to address. That will be one of the top things on my list. To protect the people. And not only want to keep your home and protect your home, but we need to protect the people that live here as well. And that doesn't matter what ethnicity they are. Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Roxanne, did you have a question?
Well, it's a comment anyway. I just think, like you said, we got to think more out of the box, and being on the school board and going to township meetings, and like the gentleman's question there are all kinds of fundraisers, tons of them. Our fire department has chicken barbecue and dance and pancake breakfast and whatever they make, the township's going to add to it. They need a fire truck. The kids at school, I got 11 grandkids. Pie fundraisers, cans, they want to get a new volleyball net, they need to do that. There's a lot of people that will pay if they have the extra, or they're not going to take your house if you can't pay your taxes. But I think thinking out of the box, and the money is here that people will pay for help the kids or help the fire department or wherever they need.
And I think so. And I think so too, Roxanne. You guys all are familiar with Myers, and this is not a plug for Myers grocery stores, but you know what? My son is 100% disabled veteran. Him and my daughter run a veterans organization, a nonprofit, and Myers is one of the most generous They will write a check out to them for $5,000 to feed veterans at Thanksgiving time in our restaurant, and they don't even care if we spend the money at their store. They're just giving that money and saying, you know what, feed as many as you can, feed the first responders, do whatever you can. They have been so generous, and I think they do a lot of things in the area already. They did the White Pine Trail, they have the Frederick Meyer Gardens, they do a lot of other stuff, and I think that if they didn't have to pay $275,000 in taxes a year that goes who knows where, whatever, to do whatever, I think if the Rockford football team said, we need a new Jumbotron at the end of our football field, will you help us? They would do it. Why? Because it's community goodwill. They know where their money's being spent. It's staying in the community. And it's doing benefit. It's helping the people in their community. I think you would find a lot more of that. How do Christian schools survive? On donations from the community and tuition. I think there's people, we are our brother's keepers. I think there's people here that if they weren't so strapped cash themselves and afraid of losing their houses, they would love to donate to causes that were near and dear to their heart. And we are good people. We are good people.
What's your views on abortion?
I'm against abortion. I will tell you I'm against abortion, but we live in a state where half of the people, they all voted on this last time, right? They all voted on this last time, and we got some nasty abortion laws passed.
We had voting problems, so I don't know if that really passed.
Well, they're working on, I think they're now working on some referendums and stuff to fix that. But my response would be, my first inclination would say, there's a lot of people that religiously do not want to support abortion. There's a lot of people that maybe aren't religious and they don't care about it, but they don't care about people getting abortions or not. What I would say is that the people of the state of Michigan are not going to fund it. If you decide, I cannot push my faith onto you. If you decide to have an abortion, you're going to do it somewhere. But the people of the state of Michigan shouldn't have to pay for it.
What's your thought on gun control and all that stuff?
I like guns. I come from, my dad was in the Guards. He did not like guns. He was not, even on a farm, he had a gun around to shoot little varmints and maybe an animal, like a farm animal that had to get put out of his leash or something like that, but he was not like but my son hunts a lot, and all of my grandkids have learned how to hunt. They do the youth hunts and whatever else. When guns are handled correctly by law-abiding people, we should have them, because you know what? We do make a difference. People like look at what happened. Where was it? Where the ex was he a Marine? The ex-Marine saved people in Traverse City with Walmart. Thank God for that man. Thank God he had a gun, right? But working with the sheriff's department, what I will tell you is I saw a lot of people that liked to carry guns. That I'm like, you shouldn't be carrying that gun because you're not ready to use it. Don't carry a gun if you're not ready to use it, because that is the quickest way to get yourself shot. Because that person that is trying to rob you, he's already willing to do the dirty deed. He's ready to rob you, he's ready to stab you, or he's ready to shoot you. And if you pull out a pretty pink gun and you think you're going to scare him off, you are not, you're going to be dead. So I think I have a healthy respect for guns. I have a healthy respect for people, law-abiding people that carry guns. And you know what? If they want to abolish gun carrying, as soon as they line up all the criminals and take all of the guns from those people, I will be the next person in line. But not until then. Because I have a right to protect myself, and I have a right to protect my property. And I'm sorry, we have a lot of lunatics running around out here now. And you know what? And I'm not going to say that the illegals are lunatics. That's not what I'm saying. But you know what? We gave them everything. We gave them everything, and now we're starting to take it back. And you know what? Now they're here, and they're hungry, and they don't have clothes, and they're running out of money for rent and whatever else. Who are they going to come after? We're sitting ducks. We're sitting ducks if we're not allowed to protect ourselves. So, Second Amendment, that's what it's all about. It's the Constitution. Yes.
Another question I have is, okay, you get elected as governor. always been arraigned in the House and the Senate, so they are pissing around for 6 months on a stupid little.
Part-time legislation,
Pardon?
part-time legislation. That'll be another one of my goals.
And you think that'll work?
Well, you know what? A couple of them have tried it. A couple, you know, that we've had bills written before about part-time legislation. But we just, you know, maybe it needs to be a citizens initiative petition. Because maybe the people need to do it and force, because they're not going to volunteer to put themselves on part-time.
Right.
A couple of them have tried it. Because 44 other states have it and it works. But, you know, I just think some of the people in Lansing, that they like their money, they like their perks, they don't want to have to get a part-time job. Right? I mean, some of us, I was campaigning for someone else. And I was coming across people, one guy was 73 years old, he went back to work 3 days a week to pay his property taxes. That's how sad it is, and you know what, why is nobody fighting for him?
Well, the reason I asked that is because talking to some of the guys that are down in Lansing right now with a Rex radio in their office, they come wandering in 9 o'clock in the morning, they get their coffee, they go visit with their buddies, and he says they don't get nothing done till they don't even sit down and talk till 11 or 12.
Yeah, well, if I'm going to do all the work, they can all go home. Because you know what, this state and the people of this state are too important to me. And I think what we don't need a show pony, we need a workforce. And that's what I am. I've worked hard all my life. And I've, you know, built and run small businesses and whatever else I've done, and I've never stopped working, and I don't plan on stopping working. And this is too important to us. You know what, those people, maybe they don't care, maybe they don't see it, maybe they don't feel it like we do, and they're certainly not listening to us. But what we need is people that are willing to go and chain themselves into those offices until stuff gets taken care of. And that's what it is. That's what it's going to take. Deb.
I just want to say, this weekend we was down at the Medical Cruise on 28th Street. Me and Lori and I have been traveling.
Stand up, people behind you can hear you.
We've been traveling the state. We've been to Ann Arbor, we've been to the Detroit Car Show, we've been in some
Circulating.
Moffitt area, Spurgedale area, Ann Arbor was wrong. But we've done it. But this weekend in Grand Rapids at the 20th Street Metro was like a turning point for us. We were so busy with the two of us, we could hardly keep up. We worked 9 hours down there. People, a lot more people just walking up to us. One guy, or there was a few that mentioned your interview you just recently had, and he was up there. He goes, "That lady is one smart lady." He goes, "Those three were coming at her. They couldn't catch her."
They said I spanked them.
Yeah.
Somebody said you spanked them.
So we seen a turning point this week, which was really uplifting the process. We traveled the state to get these signatures. And I see a lot of other people doing a lot of good, a lot of out there. It's not just us. We're doing what we can do. I just wish more of the circulators would jump in, and I don't understand why. I'm afraid that somebody hits them just the wrong day. They're not educated enough on what this is going to do for us, and then they clam up. A lot of times we're looking for someone just to help to document the signatures. You don't have to talk to people. Just be there to help get those signatures. Because when I'm getting the signature, I'm wasting my time. Karla's doing all the real hard work. She's the one who's traveling. Hate to tell you this, you need to do more podcasts, more interviews. The more you're out there, I think people see the honesty of where you're coming from. Tell people, is it a perfect plan? Maybe not. But what's perfect in Lansing right now? They're changing it every day of the week. We've got to do something. When you start talking to the people that come up that are losing their homes, that are taking loans so they don't go into foreclosure, that you talk to young kids, property taxes going up 3 times as much as the previous owners. No one told them. One young gentleman told us $500 a month more on his property taxes. What are we going to do? I'm not worried just about my grandkids. I'm worried about my kids. I've got kids that can't even afford to buy a home. Rent is outrageous. Pretty soon they ain't even be able to afford the rent. Where are these kids going to be? I've got 2 living at home with me right now in their 30s. Where are we going in this state? We got to do something, and people got to understand that how important this is. We've got to get it on the ballot.
This is our time. This is our time. This is the perfect storm. There's a lot of stuff going on, and like I said, I know it's not perfect. Steve Carr, Representative Carr said, but you know what, folks? If we don't constrain the government, the government will constrain us, and it already has. It already is, and we're feeling it. We're feeling the noose around our necks, and we need to do something to change it, yes.
On the gun thing, I've heard the stories of somebody who's defending their property or their house and they shoot somebody, and the criminal sues them for everything they got. That should change too, because the criminals don't have the money.
I got law enforcement changes on here. I want to do, prison reform changes, crime. I want to be harder, tougher on crimes, that kind of stuff, yes.
So, David and Dawn and our group, at the Amish auction in May, did 700 signatures this weekend is the Amish auction again, and we had 6 petitioners, and we had all 6 busy at times across our tables. And also, I want to get together groups to go do the Mackinac Bridge Walk. So I'm looking for teams to go up there. I would like a dozen teams. Would be awesome to put people in different areas, or if it's just one person, they can join forces. But we're trying to get people to Mackinac.
Yeah, get in touch with Dar Olson.
I already
and Donna Dutcher. Donna Dutcher's on the side.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, with all these people saying, well, you just don't care about the kids, it's all about the kids, after all, Nancy Pelosi, man, for the kids, for the kids, for the kids. I find this an interesting quote. As long as the government is perceived as working for the benefit of the children, the people will happily endure almost any curtailment of rights. That was written in Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler.
Yeah. Mary, did you have a question?
I had a question for you about we were kind of talking about potential going on the bridge, but where people say what kind of lodging is available?
Well, I don't know what lodging is available, but if anybody wanted to come off in the morning, we're going to try to get a place at the base of the bridge. I think there's a park there, so we talked to Dr. Olson about that. And so I'm going to try to be there at 6:30 in the morning to get our vehicle in there so that we can have the spot to set up. And so we're going up the night before. We're just going to stay in the truck. And so, but there's different places around. Some people said maybe rest areas up, before or after, and so I don't have a solution for that.
Rod, did you have a question?
I had more of a
He asked your wife, she is here. Is that your question?
No.
Did you see my wife? Yeah, she's here.
No, I had more of a comment. That, I just heard on a program the other day that BlackRock and Vanguard are going to own 60% of the single-family homes in this country in a short period of time. So if you don't know the big plan for all of us, you might want to research it.
Well, and again, as a part of the Home Builders Association, we're told all the time, there's billions of dollars, there's millions and billions of dollars just waiting to be used to build what I call affordable housing units. They're multi-family, so we're being taxed out of our single-family homes to provide multi-family units, right? And the state is becoming our landlord, and the state is becoming our builder. And everybody else, they're getting rid of private landlords, they're getting rid of private builders, they're going to do subsidization of large developers, right, large builders. And that is what, like Rod said, we need to start thinking about that, because once we pass a certain percentage, I think Michigan right now is about 39 or 40% renters. Once we pass a certain point, you know what, we'll have a very hard time ending or stopping any millages. Because a lot of those people just don't think that property taxes affect them. So it would be huge to try to educate them otherwise, right? So we need to think about that, because the state is kind of taking over a lot, and it's also taking our farmland. Yes.
So a little bit different here, but if a constitutional amendment, another one that I think we need is one where we can't spend tax dollars on campaigns, because you're going to have a lot of tax dollars spent to defeat this. But if we had a constitutional amendment where they can't use it for their own campaign or put down our voices, because they've got so much money to throw at it that it's our money they're throwing back at us.
Look at Rena Nelsel, how many times she's suing Trump. We're not telling her to sue Trump, but look at how much of our tax dollars that are being wasted to do that, right? She's doing it for her own, I think for her own reasons, but it's using our tax dollars to sue something which maybe we don't really want to see that. But the campaign dollars, we see that all the time.
Well, why don't we?
There's nothing in the Constitution right now that states that the state government funds all these businesses either. Right. But yet they do it.
But the Constitution is so we can limit government power.
Yeah.
It's not for the government, it's for us to limit their power.
Right.
So we need to limit how they spend their money.
Right, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to send
It's another way to do it.
Yes.
You're running for governor. Do you want us people to sign something?
Yeah, so I think we have to go. We have to wrap it up. Rhonda said we had to until 8. This table over here has my gubernatorial petition, nominating petition on it. And that one back there is for the Ask My Tax petition. We have a Ask My Tax. Join the Facebook page if you're not already on it. It's axmitact.org. A lot of funky stuff going on there. People get pretty high-spirited and stuff. It's a lot of fun. So watch those posts. I post quite a bit on there myself, and so does this young lady over here. But then my site will be www.karla4mi.com. So it's under construction, but we are getting more and more stuff out here. So thank you all very much for coming. I really appreciate it. Hope you learned something.
And these you are.
Yeah, just give them to me. I'll give them to Karla.
Thank you, ma'am.
How are you? You made it. That's okay. What'd you think, dear?
Oh my God, I sent you a text in the middle of all that.
Oh, did you? Oh, whoops, let me.